Welcome back to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today we're talking about a topic near and dear to my heart, which is rockabilly music, as I recently discovered an album just from 2021 called Encore by Wanda Jackson. So as you probably know, we recently lost Jerry Lee Lewis, and that's widely seen as the death of the final founding father of rock and roll. I mean, you could sort of get into the details. You could argue, does someone like Dion count as one of the founding fathers, or is he from a slightly later generation? We count Johnny Tillotson. But I think regardless, even if we say all of the founding fathers of rock and roll are gone, we still have the founding mother with us, the queen of rock and roll, Wanda Jackson. Wanda was a country singer, but she went on sort of touring package shows with people like Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, and Johnny Cash. She considered herself friends with all of them. And she credits Elvis for telling her, don't feel confined to the country genre. I'm doing this new thing called rock and roll. Maybe you should give it a try. And she went from there. And while there were certainly other women singers who got to be quite famous in that early rock and roll era, Brenda Lee, Connie Francis, Wanda Jackson stands out as the one who, crossed that unofficial gender barrier and wasn't just, and I know there's no non-problematic way to frame this, but like a woman 50s singer, but a rockabilly. She was there with the boy rockabillys, so to speak. And with this record, she's celebrating the tradition of music she has always participated in. This album begins with a track called Big Baby, which is a woman making fun of her partner's immaturity. Like a lot of rockabilly songs, it has fun with kind of silly, lighthearted lyrics, and there's a nice little piano group under it. It's followed by a song that truly brings out all the quirks in the rockabilly tradition, which is called Two Shots, and which is basically a woman threatening revenge against her man if she keeps on cheating. It's dark, but it's lighthearted, and it brings out all that rockabilly energy. Obviously not something you could write if the genders were reversed, but because of the context, we get to enjoy it as light black humor fun. Track number 3 brings in more of a southern dirty blues sound. It's just a lusty song called You Drive Me Wild. And that's followed by a track which is arguably the real anthem of this whole thing, Good Girl Down. Wanda Jackson, I sensed, both from this record, but also from listening to her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech, both Rosanne Cash inducting her and Wanda's own speech, that it was very important to her that she be seen as a lady. I know I said earlier that Wanda Jackson was one with the rockabillys, and it seems like the core of her identity is that she could do this badass style of music without being a badass person. This is, I guess, her version of Huey Lewis's It's Hip to Be Square. The song has a sort of similar groove to Bad Bad Leroy Brown, and I can see lots of people, male, female, or otherwise, accepting it as their anthem. Track number 5 is It Keeps Right On a Hurting. This is a cover of Johnny Tillotson, who I mentioned earlier as one of the lesser-known rock pioneers. The one song I know by him is great. It's called Poetry in Motion. But this is a song with simple lyrics, but the soulful country singing of it is so great, and there's just all the right emphasis on the right syllables to make this very simple song of country romantic pining matter. The last 3 songs on the album, We Gotta Stop, Treat Me Like a Lady, That's What Love Is, are maybe a bit too much on the sentimental side for my taste. We Gotta Stop, though, does have a bit of an interesting structure. It kind of reminds me of the slightly experimental 60s songs like Everlasting Love or Crimson and Clover. Treat Me Like a Lady is also experimental in that it starts with this sort of cool grove, being like, I'm a bad woman in cool clothing, but inside I'm a lady. I need to be romance. So it's, again, just getting at this key part of who Wanda Jackson is. Lady on the inside, badass rockabilly on the outside. And then, That's What Love Is a sort of straight, sweet song about 2 people in domestic bliss together. Wanda Jackson, she also emphasized in her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech, she was married to a man for about 50 years, was some sort of computer scientist, and then left that career behind to help support her music career. So she was always very happy to talk about how important a stable marriage was behind her scene. So an interesting mix of things here. I prefer the earlier tracks on that song album that are straight rockabilly, just have that raw energy and silliness to them. But again, a thing I gleaned from her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech is it was important to her that she was someone who crossed genres, that she could play rock and roll without giving up her country stuff. And so while I don't like the sentimental stuff towards the end of this record as much, it was important to her that she do this. This is a short album, but it's overall well structured. Each song sounds a bit different than the last, brings in different genres. There's also a lot of various people duetting on here. Someone named Angelina Presley, as far as I know, no relation to Elvis, also has her own version of Good Girl Down. She sings some harmony on this, and she's one of the co-writers. Someone named Candy Carpenter and Elle King. And the huge name on here, who's also the producer, is Joan Jett. You know, I love rock and roll. So a great cast of various generations of rock and roll singers, and Wanda Jackson enjoying herself as a rock star until the end. I think she retired from music in 2018 due to a stroke, so this is probably her last record, but they made it happen. It's short, it's sweet, it's great, and Wanda Jackson should absolutely not be forgotten as one of the pioneers of the very beginning of rock and roll. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.